The diner sat quietly on the edge of town, far from the busy streets of downtown Chicago. It was a place where people came to eat simple meals or grab coffee late at night. Most folks didn't notice it unless they were driving by and needed somewhere to stop. Inside, the air smelled like fried food and old wood. The walls were covered in faded posters of musicians no one remembered anymore. Red vinyl booths lined the sides, some torn and patched up with duct tape. At the center stood a long counter with stools that wobbled if you leaned too hard on them. Emily Carter worked there as a waitress. She had been doing this job for 3 years now, ever since she dropped out of college to help her family pay bills. Emily wasn't the kind of person who dreamed big dreams about fancy careers or traveling the world. She just wanted to make enough money to get by and maybe save a little for the future. Her co-workers liked her because she always smiled, even when things got tough. Customers appreciated how she remembered their orders and asked how their day went. But despite all her hard work, Emily often felt invisible, like nobody really noticed what she did. That evening, the diner wasn't very crowded. Only a handful of people sat around, mostly truck drivers stopping for a quick bite before heading back onto the highway. Emily moved between tables, refilling cups of coffee and dropping off plates of burgers and fries. She wore her usual uniform, a white blouse, black pants, and a name tag pinned crookedly above her heart. Her short brown hair was tucked behind her ears and her face showed signs of exhaustion after a long shift. As she passed by the cash register, she glanced toward the corner booth near the window. There sat a man she hadn't seen before. He looked different from the usual crowd. Instead of jeans and boots, he wore a plain gray suit that seemed a bit wrinkled, like he'd been traveling. His briefcase rested on the seat next to him, and his tie hung loosely around his neck. He stared out the window, lost in thought, not paying attention to anyone else in the room. Curious, Emily walked over to take his order. "Hi there," she said softly, trying not to startle him. "Can I get you something to drink?" The man turned his head slowly, as if snapping out of a deep trance. His eyes met hers, and for a moment Emily thought she saw something unusual in them. Maybe sadness or maybe worry. "Water, please," he replied. His voice was calm but carried a hint of weariness. "And, do you have pie?" "Of course," Emily said with a warm smile. "We've got apple, cherry, and pecan tonight." "Apple will be fine," he answered, then looked away again, gazing out the window once more. Emily nodded and jotted down his order before heading to the kitchen. As she waited for the cook to prepare the pie, she couldn't help but glance back at the man every so often. Something about him intrigued her. He didn't seem like the type of person who would stop at a rundown diner like this one. Maybe he was just passing through, she thought. Or maybe he had a reason for being here that she couldn't guess. When the pie was ready, Emily brought it to his table along with a glass of water. "Here you go," she said cheerfully, setting the plate down in front of him. "Let me know if you need anything else." He gave her a small nod and murmured a quiet, "Thank you." Then he picked up his fork and began eating slowly, still looking distracted. Emily lingered for a moment, unsure why she felt drawn to him. Finally, she decided to leave him alone and returned to her other tasks. About halfway through his meal, the man's phone rang. He pulled it out of his pocket and answered it, speaking in hushed tones. Emily couldn't hear everything he said, but she caught bits and pieces of the conversation. Words like protocols, a board meeting, and urgent floated across the room. Whatever he was talking about sounded important, though he tried to keep his voice low. After hanging up, the man sighed deeply and rubbed his temples. He looked even more stressed than before. Emily wondered if she should say something comforting, but she hesitated. Strangers usually didn't want to talk about their problems with waitresses. Just then, trouble arrived in the form of a loud, burly truck driver named Carl. He had been sitting at the counter earlier, drinking beer and grumbling under his breath. Now he stood up and staggered toward Emily, clearly drunk. "Hey, sweetheart," he slurred, grabbing her arm roughly. "Why haven't you brought me my check yet? You think I'm going to wait all night?" Emily flinched, trying to pull away. "I'll bring it right now," she stammered, hoping he'd let go. but Carl tightened his grip instead, pulling her closer. "Don't give me that attitude," he growled. "You better learn how to treat your customers better." Before Emily could respond, a firm voice cut through the tension. "Let go of her." Everyone turned to see the man in the suit standing up from his booth. His expression was calm but commanding, and his eyes locked onto Carl with an intensity that made the truck driver falter. "She doesn't deserve to be treated that way," the man continued, stepping closer. "Apologize and sit down." For a second, Carl looked like he might argue, but something about the stranger's presence made him hesitate. Grumbling under his breath, he released Emily's arm and shuffled back to his stool. "Sorry," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Emily stared at the man in disbelief. She hadn't expected anyone to step in, let alone someone who seemed so ordinary at first glance. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," the man replied, gently. "Just doing the right thing." With that, he returned to his booth and resumed eating his pie as if nothing had happened. Emily watched him for a moment, feeling a mix of gratitude and curiosity. Who was this man? And why had he gone out of his way to help her? By the time her shift ended, Emily still hadn't figured it out. But one thing was certain. The quiet stranger in the corner had left a lasting impression on her, and possibly changed the course of her life forever. After closing time, Emily tidied up the diner before heading home. She wiped down tables, stacked chairs, and swept the floor while replaying the events of the evening in her mind. The stranger's kindness during Carl's outburst had touched her deeply. Strangers rarely stood up for waitresses like her. It wasn't something people expected or even noticed most of the time. Yet this man had stepped in without hesitation, showing both courage and compassion. As she finished cleaning, she noticed him still sitting in his booth, sipping the last of his water. He seemed lost in thought again, staring blankly at the table. Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach him. Finally, she walked over and said gently, "We're closing soon. Is there anything else I can get for you?" The man looked up, startled as if he'd forgotten where he was. Then his expression softened and he shook his head. "No, thank you," he replied. "You've been very kind already." Emily smiled awkwardly. "Well, it's my job. But I wanted to say thanks again for helping me earlier. That guy can be pretty rough sometimes." He nodded slowly, studying her face as if trying to understand something about her. After a pause, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. "Actually," he began, placing it on the table, "there is one more thing you could do for me. Could you deliver this tomorrow morning? It's important and I trust you'll handle it carefully." Emily blinked in surprise, delivering an envelope. To whom? And why would he ask her to do such a thing? She glanced at the envelope, which bore no markings or addresses. I guess so," she stammered. "Where does it need to go?" The man handed her a slip of paper with an address written on it. "Take it here first thing in the morning," he instructed. "Just give it to whoever answers the door. They'll know what to do." Still confused, Emily accepted the envelope reluctantly. Something about the situation felt strange, almost secretive. But the man's tone was calm and reassuring, and she didn't want to seem ungrateful after everything he'd done for her. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll make sure it gets there." "Thank you," he said earnestly. "You have no idea how much this means to me." With that, he stood up, gathered his briefcase, and left the diner without another word. Emily watched him walk away, wondering what exactly she had just agreed to. The next morning, Emily woke up earlier than usual. She dressed quickly and headed downtown to the address the man had given her. The building turned out to be a sleek office tower, its glass facade gleaming in the sunlight. Nervously, she approached the front desk and handed over the envelope. The receptionist barely glanced at it before nodding and disappearing into the back. Emily lingered for a moment, hoping for some explanation, but none came. Feeling uneasy, she turned around and left. Back at the diner later that afternoon, Emily tried to put the whole incident out of her mind. As she clocked in for her shift, however, She noticed Mr. Harris, the manager, waiting for her near the break room. His arms were crossed and his face wore a scowl that made her stomach sink. "Emily," he barked, motioning for her to follow him. "In my office. Now." Her heart raced as she obeyed. What could this be about? Had she done something wrong? Once inside, Mr. Harris shut the door firmly behind them and gestured for her to sit. Instead of taking a seat himself, he paced irritably behind his desk. "I got a call today," he began, his voice sharp and accusing. "Someone told me they saw you talking to a customer late last night. They also mentioned you leaving the diner with an envelope. Care to explain what that was all about?" Emily froze. How did anyone know about the envelope? And who would have? Reported her? "It's not what it sounds like," she started, fumbling for words. "That man, he just asked me to deliver it. He said it was important." "Important?" Mr. Harris interrupted, slamming his fist on the desk. "Do you realize how suspicious that sounds? You think I'm going to let one of my employees run around doing favors for random strangers? This isn't some spy movie, Emily." "But I didn't do anything wrong," Emily protested, her voice rising despite herself. "He helped me when that drunk guy was bothering me. I owed him. I thought it was harmless." Mr. Harris snorted derisively. "Harmless? You don't know anything about this guy. For all we know, he could be involved in something illegal, and now you've dragged our diner into it." "That's not fair," Emily shot back, tears welling up in her eyes. "You're making assumptions without even asking questions. I was just trying to help someone." "Helping someone doesn't mean risking your job. Or mine," Mr. Harris snapped. "Look, I've had enough problems with you lately. First, complaints from customers, and now this nonsense. I'm sorry, Emily, but I can't keep you on staff. You're fired." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Fired? Over a simple favor? Emily stared at him, speechless. Her mind raced, searching for something, anything, to say in her defense. But before she could respond, Mr. Harris waved her away dismissively. "Go home, Emily. Don't come back." Stunned, Emily grabbed her things and left the diner in silence. Outside, the cold wind bit at her cheeks, but she barely noticed. All she could think about was how unfair it all was. She hadn't done anything wrong. If anything, she'd been trying to do the right thing. Why couldn't anyone see that? Word of her dismissal spread quickly among the other employees. By the end of the day, everyone knew what had happened. Some whispered sympathetically, saying Mr. Harris had gone too far this time. Others speculated wildly about the mysterious man in the envelope, painting Emily as some sort of accomplice in shady dealings. None of it mattered to Emily anymore. She felt hurt, betrayed, and utterly alone. As she walked home that evening, she replayed every detail of the past 2 days in her mind. The stranger's kindness, the envelope, Mr. Harris's accusations. It all felt surreal, like pieces of a puzzle she couldn't quite fit together. Who was that man, really? And why had he trusted her with something so important? Little did Emily know, the answers to those questions would come sooner and more dramatically than she ever could have imagined. The next morning, the diner buzzed with its usual early crowd. Truck drivers sipped coffee while reading newspapers, families shared pancakes, and the clatter of dishes filled the air. Everything seemed normal, until the door swung open and a sleek black car pulled up outside. The engine purred softly as the driver stepped out to open the rear door. Everyone turned to see who was arriving. Out walked the same man from the night before, the one who had asked Emily to deliver the envelope, but this time he looked completely different. Gone was the wrinkled suit and tired demeanor. Now he wore an impeccably tailored navy blue suit that fit him perfectly. His posture was upright, his movements deliberate, and his presence commanded attention. 2 assistants followed closely, behind him carrying clipboards and speaking quietly into their phones. The diner fell silent as the group entered. Patrons craned their necks to get a better look, and even the cooks peeked out from the kitchen window. Whispers rippled through the room. "Isn't that? Who is he? What's going on?" Mr. Harris, the manager, rushed over, his face flushed with nervous energy. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, trying to sound polite but clearly flustered. The man ignored him for a moment, scanning the room until his gaze landed on Emily. She sat in a corner booth, having come back to collect her last paycheck. Her heart raced as their eyes met. What was he doing here? And why did everyone seem so awestruck? "Good morning," the man said loudly enough for everyone to hear. His voice carried authority, silencing the murmurs instantly. "My name is Daniel Harper. I believe many of you recognize me from my visit a couple of nights ago." Gasps echoed around the diner. Daniel Harper, the CEO of Harper Tech, one of the biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley? No one could believe it. The unassuming stranger, they'd dismissed as just another traveler, was actually one of the most powerful men in the country. "I came here incognito because I wanted to observe how people treat strangers without knowing their status," Daniel continued, his tone calm, but firm. "And let me tell you, I learned a lot. Some lessons were disappointing." He paused, glancing pointedly at Mr. Harris. "But others were inspiring." Emily's cheeks burned as Daniel turned his focus back to her. "Ms. Carter," he said, motioning for her to stand. Hesitant, she rose from her seat, feeling every pair of eyes in the room on her. "You showed remarkable kindness and professionalism during our brief encounter. When confronted with hostility, you remained composed. And when I asked for your assistance, you acted with integrity, even though you didn't know who I was." Took a step closer, his expression softening. "That envelope you delivered contained confidential documents critical to my company's operations. Thanks to your discretion and reliability, those documents reached their destination safely. You played a vital role in ensuring the success of a major project." The room erupted into whispers again. Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed by the revelation. She hadn't realized the gravity of what she'd done. All she'd thought about was helping someone in need. Daniel then addressed the entire diner. "Unfortunately, not everyone shares Ms. Carter's values. After learning about her unjust termination yesterday, I decided to investigate further." He turned toward Mr. Harris, whose face had gone pale. "I discovered that her dismissal was based on unfounded suspicions and personal bias. That is unacceptable." Mr. Harris stammered, trying to defend himself. "Sir, I assure you I only acted in the best interest of the business." "You acted out of fear and prejudice," Daniel interrupted sharply. "Ms. Carter did nothing wrong. In fact, she demonstrated qualities we should all admire: honesty, loyalty, and compassion. Instead of supporting her, you punished her. That reflects poorly not only on you, but on this establishment as a whole." The weight of Daniel's words hung heavy in the air. Employees shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact with their boss. Customers exchanged knowing looks, silently agreeing that justice was being served. Turning back to Emily, Daniel smiled warmly. "Ms. Carter, I owe you an apology for involving you in this situation. Please allow me to make amends." He gestured to one of his assistants, who handed him a check. "This is compensation for the hardship you endured due to your wrongful termination. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a position within my company. We're looking for someone with your dedication and empathy to lead our community relations team. Would you be interested?" Emily blinked, struggling to process everything. A job offer from Harper Tech? It sounded like a dream, yet it felt surreal. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Thank you, I'll think about it." Daniel nodded understandingly. "Take your time, but know that opportunities like this don't come often. You deserve recognition for your character and hard work." As the crowd erupted into applause, Emily felt a wave of emotions: gratitude, relief, and a hint of pride. For once, she wasn't invisible. People saw her for who she truly was, and it made all the difference. Meanwhile, Mr. Harris slunk away, humiliated and defeated. His attempts to salvage the situation failed miserably, leaving him isolated and despised by both staff and customers. The diner's reputation suffered irreparable damage, with locals vowing never to return. For Emily, however, this marked the beginning of something new, a chance to leave the past behind and embrace a brighter future. Little did she know, her journey was far from over. With Daniel Harper's support, she was about to embark on an adventure that would change her life forever. In the weeks that followed Daniel Harper's dramatic visit to the diner, Emily's life changed completely. After much thought and encouragement from Daniel himself, she accepted his offer to join Harper Tech. It wasn't an easy decision. Leaving behind the only job she'd ever known felt scary. But deep down, Emily knew this was her chance to grow and prove herself in ways she'd never imagined. Her first day at Harper Tech was overwhelming. The company's headquarters was a towering skyscraper in downtown Chicago, its glass facade gleaming under the morning sun. As Emily stepped inside, she couldn't help but feel out of place. Everyone around her seemed so polished and confident, while she still wore her old self-doubt like a heavy coat. But Daniel had assured her that she belonged here, and she clung to his words as she navigated the bustling lobby. Daniel introduced Emily to the team during a meeting in one of the building's high-tech conference rooms. "Everyone, this is Emily Carter," he said, gesturing toward her. "She'll be leading our community relations department. Her experience connecting with people and solving problems will bring fresh energy to our initiatives." The executives greeted her warmly, though Emily noticed a few skeptical glances. She understood why. They were used to hiring candidates with fancy degrees and years of corporate experience. Compared to them, she felt like an outsider. But Daniel's faith in her gave her courage. If he believed she could do it, then maybe she could too. Over time, Emily began to settle into her new role. At first, she spent most of her days observing and learning how things worked. She attended meetings, reviewed reports, and shadowed colleagues to better understand the company's goals. Slowly but surely, she started contributing ideas of her own. Drawing from her years as a waitress, she emphasized the importance of treating employees and customers with respect and empathy. To her surprise, her perspective resonated with many at Harper Tech, especially Daniel. One afternoon, Daniel invited Emily to his office for a private chat. His workspace was sleek and minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of the city. "How are you adjusting?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. Emily hesitated before answering. "It's been challenging," she admitted. "I'm still getting used to everything. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice." Daniel smiled kindly. "You're doing great, Emily. Trust me, change is hard for everyone. What matters is that you're willing to learn and adapt. That's more valuable than any degree or title." His words reassured her, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she had to work twice as hard to earn her place. So she threw herself into her projects, determined to make a difference. One of her first tasks was organizing a charity event to support local businesses affected by economic downturns. Using her knowledge of small-town struggles, she crafted a campaign that highlighted real stories of resilience and hope. The event turned out to be a huge success, drawing attention not only to Harper Tech but also to the communities it aimed to help. As word of Emily's contributions spread, her confidence grew. Colleagues who had once doubted her now sought her input, recognizing the unique value she brought to the table. Even outside of work, Emily found herself changing. She dressed differently, spoke more assertively, and carried herself with newfound pride. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly making an impact. Back at the diner, things were falling apart. Without Emily's steady presence, tensions between staff and management reached a boiling point. Customers complained about poor service and rude employees, and negative reviews piled up online. Eventually, the diner closed its doors for good, unable to recover from the scandal sparked by Mr. Harris's actions. Some former co-workers blamed him for ruining their livelihoods, while others quietly admired Emily for escaping such a toxic environment. Meanwhile, Emily continued to thrive at Harper Tech. Her bond with Daniel deepened as they collaborated on various projects. Though their relationship remained professional, there was an undeniable mutual respect between them. Daniel often praised Emily for her creativity and determination, qualities he said reminded him of his younger self. In turn, Emily admired Daniel's leadership style, calm, fair, and always focused on doing what was right. Despite her success, Emily sometimes missed the simplicity of her old life. Working at the diner may have been exhausting, but it had also been predictable. Now every day brought new challenges and opportunities. While thrilling, it was also daunting. Still, she reminded herself that growth rarely came without discomfort, and if she could handle being fired unjustly and standing up to bullies, she could handle anything. By the end of her first year at Harper Tech, Emily had become a key figure in the company. Her efforts to improve workplace culture earned her recognition, both internally and externally. Local newspapers featured her story, calling her a symbol of resilience and humility. Public speaking engagements followed, where she shared lessons learned from her journey, from waiting tables to leading teams. Each speech ended with the same message: no matter where you start, kindness and integrity can take you farther than you ever dreamed. Though grateful for her accomplishments, Emily never forgot where she came from. On weekends, she volunteered at shelters and community centers, staying connected to the world she'd left behind. These experiences kept her grounded and reminded her of the values that had guided her all along. As she looked ahead to the future, Emily felt a mix of excitement and gratitude. Life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned, but perhaps that was the beauty of it. Sometimes unexpected detours led to destinations far greater than we could imagine. With Daniel's mentorship and her own unwavering spirit, Emily knew she was ready for whatever came next. And so her story continued. Not as a tale of luck or coincidence, but as a testament to the power of compassion, perseverance, and believing in oneself. Months turned into years, and Emily's life at Harper Tech continued to flourish. What had started as a leap of faith became a journey of growth, learning, and transformation. She no longer felt like the shy waitress who doubted herself. Instead, she embraced her role as a leader within the company. Her community relations department thrived under her guidance, earning praise not only from employees but also from the public. People admired how she championed causes that mattered, using her platform to uplift others and create meaningful change. One of Emily's proudest accomplishments was launching a mentorship program aimed at helping young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds find careers in tech. Drawing inspiration from her own struggles, she designed the program to provide training, resources, and networking opportunities. Many participants went on to secure jobs at Harper Tech and other companies, breaking cycles of poverty and proving that talent could come from anywhere. Emily often attended graduation ceremonies for these mentees, beaming with pride as they received certificates and shared their stories of triumph. Daniel remained a constant source of support throughout Emily's career. Their partnership evolved into a deep friendship built on mutual respect and trust. He frequently credited her for revitalizing Harper Tech's culture, saying, "Emily reminds us what truly matters: people. Without them, we're nothing." In return, Emily admired Daniel's humility and vision, qualities that inspired her to push beyond her limits. Despite her success, Emily never lost sight of her roots. Every weekend, she volunteered at shelters and food banks, ensuring she stayed connected to the community that shaped her. These experiences reminded her of the importance of gratitude and humility. They also gave her fresh ideas for projects at work, allowing her to bridge the gap between corporate ambitions and real-world needs. Back in Chicago, the diner where Emily once worked had long since closed. The building stood empty, its windows boarded up and its sign faded. Occasionally, former coworkers would reach out to Emily, sharing updates about their lives. Some had moved on to better jobs, while others struggled to adjust after losing their livelihoods. Though saddened by the diner's fate, Emily couldn't help but feel grateful for the lessons it had taught her. Lessons about resilience, hard work, and finding strength in adversity. Mr. Harris, the former manager, fared worse than anyone else. After the scandal surrounding Emily's firing, he became a pariah in the industry. No restaurant or business wanted to hire him, and rumors of his unfair treatment spread far and wide. Eventually, he disappeared from the scene altogether, leaving behind a legacy of bitterness and regret. While Emily didn't wish ill upon him, she couldn't deny the sense of justice in seeing karma catch up to him. As time passed, Emily began receiving invitations to speak at conferences, universities, and corporate events. At first, public speaking terrified her, but she soon realized it was an opportunity to inspire others. Her speeches always began with the same story: the night she met Daniel Harper at the diner. She described how she'd been fired unfairly, only to discover later that the stranger she'd helped was actually one of the most influential people in the world. But the heart of her message wasn't about luck or coincidence. It was about staying true to oneself, even when life felt unfair. Kindness isn't just something you do for others, she often said during these talks. It's something you do for yourself. When you treat people with respect and empathy, you create ripples that can change lives, including your own. Her words resonated deeply with audiences, many of whom approached her afterward to thank her for sharing her story. Some confided in her about their own struggles, seeking advice on how to overcome setbacks. Emily listened patiently, offering encouragement and reminding them that every challenge was an opportunity to grow stronger. At Harper Tech, Emily's influence extended beyond her department. Employees looked to her as a role model, someone who embodied the values the company claimed to stand for. Under her leadership, initiatives promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion gained momentum, transforming Harper Tech into a more welcoming and supportive workplace. Even critics of the tech industry admitted that the company was setting a new standard for ethical business practices. Eventually, Emily earned recognition outside the company as well. Awards and accolades poured in, celebrating her contributions to both her field and society. One particularly memorable evening, she accepted a prestigious humanitarian award at a gala attended by hundreds of dignitaries and industry leaders. As she stood on stage holding the trophy, tears welled up in her eyes. She thought back to the days when she'd felt invisible, wondering if anyone would ever notice her efforts. Now, standing there under the spotlight, she knew she'd made a difference. But despite all her achievements, Emily remained humble. She attributed her success not to her own abilities, but to the kindness and opportunities others had given her along the way. "I wouldn't be here without the people who believed in me," she told reporters after the gala. "My story isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who's ever taken a chance on someone else." Years later, Daniel announced his retirement as CEO of Harper Tech. In a heartfelt speech, he revealed that Emily would take over as the company's new leader. The news sent shockwaves through the industry, with headlines calling her appointment a historic moment for women and working-class individuals everywhere. Emily accepted the role with grace, promising to continue Daniel's mission of innovation and compassion. Under her leadership, Harper Tech reached new heights. The company expanded globally, launching groundbreaking products and initiatives that improved millions of lives. Yet Emily never forgot the core principles that had guided her journey: kindness, integrity, and a commitment to lifting others up. Looking back, Emily marveled at how much her life had changed since that quiet night at the diner. She had gone from serving coffee to running one of the largest tech companies in the world. But more importantly, she had stayed true to herself, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to extraordinary outcomes. In the end, Emily's story wasn't just about personal success. It was about the power of connection, the ripple effects of compassion, and the belief that everyone deserved a chance to shine. And though she now lived a life far removed from her humble beginnings, she carried those lessons with her always, lighting the way for others to follow.